So it's a little dark in the garage, so hang some lights. Picked up some fluorescent lights from Craigslist. So one of the things you can do is just mount it through the existing wiring in your light fixture. And one of the things to pay attention to is how to mount the actual housing to the ceiling. So what I've done is I got these toggle bolts, and basically you thread it through, get it ready to install. It's important to measure where the holes go through. It's an oversized hole. I decided not to go through the trusses, rather just go through the sheetrock rather than putting a bunch of holes in the trusses. So carefully measure where the holes are for your toggle bolts. The other thing to pay attention to is where the housing for the light units are, because I'm going to run a piece of conduit, a 5-foot conduit length, from hole to hole. So I've got a 5-foot mark, you can see right there. And you do a knockout, you just pop that little piece of metal out of the housing there. You can see it right there, sort of. And then you also will need, I got 5-foot length conduit. You can cut them with a pipe cutter. That's not too difficult to do. Then you'll also have some fittings for the conduit to go through. So this piece here, that piece goes into the housing, and then the conduit will go through there. You need 2 of them. So this, you'll take off that little piece here on the end. It's like a little washer. Anyway, it goes in through there. You take that washer out, put it on the other side. It goes inside there, then your conduit goes through there. Then you can tighten the little screw, set screw, to keep the conduit from moving. So you're going to need screwdrivers, wire cutters, and a drill, an oversized bit. You don't want to make the holes too big, just enough for these toggle screws. So what happens is you shove it through, it expands, and it locks in the other side of the ceiling. So the other thing you want to be aware of is make sure that the toggle screw, that it folds like an arrow into the direction that you're pushing it through. So it pops through the ceiling, then it expands, and then it holds. Just make sure you got these things on, or you'll never get it in through the other side of the wall or ceiling. I can't stress enough the importance of measuring the holes where your toggles go through. Sorry for the shaky camera. So you're going to measure from hole to hole, and they're slotted, but you want to center the measurement on your slotted hole, and then you measure and drill hole to hole. Also, you want to make sure that you measure off a reference line so that your lights are in line with each other. So your conduit will line up. You can see that light, and then you can see the holes. They're all lined up. So you want to measure off of something. I use the sheetrock tape, the center line of it, or the edge of it, to measure just to the left of it, so I could get things lined up. So here's a knockout hole. I'm going to knock it out, then I'll show you the after. All you do is hit it with a punch or maybe a screwdriver. But you don't have to be too aggressive. It'll pop out pretty easily. So once you kind of got it moving, you can work it. I got my finger on the other side. You can kind of pull it through. There's some metal tabs that will break fairly easily. Just go back and forth. This tab will pop loose. There you go. Okay, so one of the things you want to be aware of is I would use a 3-inch toggle bolt or toggle screw. So here's how that toggle works. I got trying to do this with one hand videotaping, but you can see that goes right in there, and if you push, it will kind of pop through, expand, and there it's hung. So you have enough room. About 3-inch bolt works good. You might be able to get 2-inch one to work, but this gives you room. The other thing that I like about having these things a little longer is when you go to put in your conduit, you can get this to move a little bit side to side so that when you put your conduit in, it'll fit and then clamp up. Okay, then you can put your screwdriver right up in here and just tighten this thing up. Oh, that's sorry for the bad lighting, but make sure your power is off when you do this, by the way. You'll have to have another light so you can see what you're doing. So, oh, actually I don't want to tighten this up quite yet because I want to put the conduit in, so I'll leave this a little loose. So you can see we got a hole in the knockout right there. We're going to put this guy on, so the threaded end, put that through there, like that. And then, it's kind of hard to do with one hand. Yeah, that's not going to work. Now this washer, you can see right here, that goes on the other end. All right, so you can see that the washer is on this piece, the threaded end, and here's the other end, and then your conduit's going to fit through this piece right here. You can run your wire through there. We'll have another one on that side over there. We'll put a fitting there. Make sure you run your wires through the metal conduit before you set it up. It'd be kind of hard to feed it through there. So be sure to measure how much wire you need. You probably need more than you think by the time you run it all the way through, and think about how to make the connection. So pre-cut these and make sure you pick the right wire size. I'm not going to go over that. By the way, I'm not an electrician. I'm a bridge engineer that's just doing this stuff. Anyways, run your wire through the conduit before you set the conduit. By the way, the conduit is this little metal pipe. By the way, be sure to loosen this set screw, bring it out so that it's not obstructing when you put the conduit through. And notice this is allowed to slide back and forth a little bit so I can get that pipe in there. Well, we'll see what happens. I forgot to mention, maybe easier to put one end on the end of one conduit. It'll be easier to slide this into position. This is shorter to slide in through that knockout than trying to get the pipe through this piece here. So I would go ahead and set this on the end of one end of the conduit, and then insert the other end into that fitting there, and then you can just push the other fitting into that knockout. Just a suggestion. All right, so got the conduit in. So just to recap, I had that fitting attached in the knockout, and I had all the wires pulled closer. Most of the wire was pulled through here already in the pipe, but so we didn't have any wires sticking out at the end of this conduit. Then this piece of fitting was hooked up to the end of the conduit, and we were able to move this around and just push it into place, and then this swinged forward towards the camera, and then we pushed these wires through to have it poke out this side so we can get ready to wire it. And then last thing what we'll do right now is tighten up these screws, so get it nice and snug up against the ceiling. So we got it all snugged up against there. One thing I want to just remind folks is buy different color wires. so that you can figure out what goes where. You can't always go by colors of what goes where, but I think I'm not an electrician. This was a relatively easy wiring project, but I would suggest do a little research before you start wiring things. This was mainly a do-it-yourselfer that is not an electrician, that's just wiring up some fluorescent lights in the garage. You want to also make sure you get the right electrical wing nuts when you connect these wires. Depending on the size of the wire, you can go to one of your hardware store and they'll tell you which type of wing nut, wire connectors that you use depending on the diameter of the wire, the gauge of the wire. So you want to make sure that all your connections are tight and insulated. So here we have lights all work and we're ready to roll.